Wednesday, in our writing lesson, we talked about what pronouns are. And remember, pronouns are words that take the place of a noun or more than one noun. And remember, those nouns that the pronouns are taking the place of are called antecedents. Well, not only are there pronouns, but there are also different types of pronouns. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So the title of your notes is Types of Pronouns. So make sure you're open to a clean page in your English notebook and that you have titled your notes Types of Pronouns, and then make sure that you write the date. So there are 3 types of pronouns that we are going to talk about today. The first type are subject pronouns. So the first type of pronouns are subject pronouns. They take the place of the noun or nouns that are the subject of the sentence. So remember, the subject is who or what is doing the action in the sentence. And a subject pronoun takes the place of the noun or the nouns that are used as the subject of a sentence. They include the pronouns I, you, she, he, it, we, and they. So these words would be used as subject pronouns. Now we talked about some other pronouns the other day, like me, her, him, her, him, his, them, us, whatever. Those would not be used as subject pronouns. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to give you an example of how to use each of these pronouns. I'm going to erase in between, but I want you to, I'm going to erase in between if I need to, but I want you to be writing all of these. So for I, well, I would say Miss Folis is teaching. Now I know the subject of that sentence, actually I'm going to do is teaching English. So this is an example. Well, I have Miss Folis as the subject, so what I'm going to change it to is I, and remember I can't say I is teaching, I have to say I am teaching English. Okay? Miss Folis is the subject. I replaced it with the subject pronoun I. I cannot say me is or am teaching English. I have to say I. Now for you. So example, the class is learning English, which would become, we have the class is the subject, they're what's doing the action, they are the ones learning. You guys, so I would say, you, I would replace the class with you. I have to change that helping verb, are learning English. If I wanted to say, the girl or boy, I'm not going to write 2 sentences for this, but the girl is learning English or the boy is learning English. The girl or the boy are the ones doing the action. So I'm going to replace it with the subject pronouns she Or he is learning English. So I changed my subject, the girl or the boy, to she or he. She is learning English, he is learning English. Now, let's use it. English is a fun class. Well, English is the subject. It's what's doing the action, or it's what's being in this sentence. So I would change English to it is a fun class. So English is the subject, and I would change it to it. Okay, now I'm going to erase to do we and they. If I wanted to say Ms. Folis for me, and the class for you guys, so Ms. Folis and the class are learning. I may be going too fast, I'm really sorry, so if you need to pause, go ahead and do that. Ms. Folis and the class are learning English. Ms. Folis and the class are the subjects, because they are what's doing the action, they are the ones learning, would become we are learning English. And now to use they, the girls and boys are learning English. The girls and the boys are the subject because they are the ones doing the action, they are learning. So the girls and the boys is changed to, they are learning English. Now, what you may have noticed in all of these examples is that the subject pronoun comes at the beginning of the sentence. That is not a coincidence, because think about it. Whenever you're writing, your subject normally comes at the beginning or very close to the beginning of a sentence. So keep that in mind whenever you're trying to figure out if you need a subject pronoun or an object pronoun, or the third type, which is a reflexive pronoun. Now also, the good thing about this is that if you use the wrong pronoun, as long as you read it to yourself out loud, you're probably going to notice right away, I did not use the right pronoun, because it does not sound right when you use an object pronoun where a subject pronoun goes. Because if I said, them are learning English, well, that does not sound right, and neither does us are learning English. So that is the good thing about subject, object, and reflexive pronouns. You can usually tell if you use the wrong one. Okay, so the next type of pronouns are object pronouns. And what object pronouns do is that they take the place of a noun or nouns that follow the predicate. And remember, the predicate is the action in the sentence. So object pronouns come after the predicate. The subject pronouns come before because they are the subject of the sentence. They are what is doing the action or is being whatever the sentence is saying. Whereas the object pronouns come after the predicate. They come after the action. So the object pronouns are me, you, which you can be used as either one. That's kind of helpful sometimes. Him, her, it is another one that can be used for both. Us, and them. So now, I will write example sentences for each of these. These are me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. So again, make sure that you are writing these in your notebook. I may have to erase if I'm going too fast. Pause the video so that you can catch up. I'm sorry. Okay, so me, for example. Let's see. She gave, let's not use any pronouns in these first sentences. The student gave Miss Folis the homework. Well, what I want to change is I want to change this to a pronoun. You see we have the subject, which is the person doing the action, the student. We have the predicate, which is what that student did. They gave it. And so now we're going to use an object pronoun to replace this noun that comes after the predicate. So the sentence becomes the student gave me the homework. It would sound weird if I said the student gave I the homework. So luckily these are easy to check for yourself. Now, Miss Folis gave the class homework. Well, I'm not talking about subject pronouns, so I'm not going to change Miss Folis. We have our predicate, gave, and then we have the class. Miss Folis gave, which I'm talking about all of you. So, Miss Folis gave you homework. Now remember, you is one of those pronouns that can be used either way, depending on where it is in the sentence. Is it the subject, or does it come after the predicate? So that's a little bit helpful, because at least that's one extra thing you don't really have to remember. If you're talking about someone else that you're talking directly to, it's always going to be you, whether it's a subject or an object. Now him and her. Miss Folis gave the girl or gave the boy homework. Okay, so I'm talking about object pronouns, so I'm not going to replace the subject of my sentence, which is Miss Folis. I have my predicate gave, and then I have the noun that comes after the predicate. I would say Miss Folis gave her the homework or gave him homework. It would sound weird if you said Miss Folis gave she homework or Miss Folis gave he homework. So you have to say her or him. Now it. The students did the homework. Okay, we have our subject, which we are not replacing right now. We have our predicate. They did it. That's what they did. And then we have the object of the sentence, which is what we want to replace. The students did it. Now that's another one like you, where it can be used as a subject pronoun or an object pronoun. You just have to look at where it is to figure out if it's the subject, if it's a subject pronoun or a object pronoun. Is it doing the action, or was the action done to it? If it is doing the action, it's a subject pronoun. If the action is being done to it, then it is the object pronoun. Okay, I'm going to erase these and do us and them. If you've noticed, the last two pronouns of each of these, object and reflexive, are plural. And the first ones are singular. However, you can be used for plural or singular. Now, for example, what should I say? The principal, let's use Ms. Gephardt because it's shorter and she is a principal. Oops. So, example, Mrs. Gephardt gave Miss Folis and the class candy. So, we want to replace Miss Folis in the class because that's the object. That's who the action is being done to. Let's see, Miss Folis and the class are being given the candy. So we would say, Mrs. Gephardt gave us candy. So remember, subject pronouns are who or what is doing the action. Object pronouns is who or what the action is being done to. So we have one more object pronoun. Let's see. Oops. Mrs. Gephardt gave the second graders candy. So we're looking at the object, that's who or what the action is being done to, and we're going to replace it with an object pronoun. Mrs. Gephardt gave them candy. Now, if we use the wrong pronoun for either of these, if we tried to use subject pronouns, it would sound like Mrs. Gephardt gave we candy and Mrs. Gephardt gave they candy. Neither of those sound right, so you should be reading them out loud to self-check. Okay, guys, so now we're going to do something a little different than what we normally do. Normally, we go through the whole lesson, then we do all of the guided practice. But what we're going to do today is we finish the first part of the lesson, so we're going to do the guided practice that goes with the first part of the lesson, and then we'll do the second part, and then we'll do the guided practice that goes with the second part of the lesson. So what I want you to do right now is get out your Tuesday packet and open up, Thursday packet, and open up, and your very first page is the guided practice. So we're going to do this together. It is front and back. But we are only going to do the front for right now because we have to finish the lesson to do the back. So we're just changing it up a little bit today. And it should have you should be looking at the page that has 103 down at the bottom. And let's read the bullet points together. I don't have them up here so that I could go ahead and have everything ready, but we can just read along with me. First bullet point says, use a subject pronoun as the subject of a sentence. I, you, he, she, it, we, and they are subject pronouns. So remember, when you are trying to replace the noun that is doing the action, you use one of these subject pronouns. Use an object pronoun after an action verb or after a word such as for, at, of, with, or to. So whoever or whatever, me, you, him, her, it, us, and them are object pronouns. So who or whatever the action is being done to, that is when you would use an object pronoun. So remember, subject pronoun does the action. Object pronoun has the action done to it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to underline the incorrect pronouns and write the correct pronouns on the line. Now this shouldn't be too hard because as soon as you read it, you can tell. So number 1, the villagers loved the man and them all missed him when he died. Well, we know that them doesn't sound right. It doesn't come at the beginning of the sentence, but it does come at the beginning of a clause. This part is it's replacing the villagers, and they are what's doing the action. They are the ones that miss him. So them should be replaced with a subject pronoun, they. The villagers loved the man, and they all missed him when he died, because they are doing the action. They are missing him. Number 2, every day when the man woke, him went to work in his garden. Well, we can tell him does not sound right. Again, it's not at the beginning of the sentence, but it is what's doing the action. So it should be a subject pronoun, he. He is doing the action. He went. So every day when the man woke, he went to work in his garden. Number 3, her and me went to the well for water. Now this is where some of you might think, that doesn't really sound wrong, but it is. It shouldn't be her and me, because if you separate those, so only think of her. Her went to the well for water. Does that sound right? No, it doesn't. If you only think of me went to the well for water. Does that sound right? It doesn't. So whenever you're trying to figure out if you're using a subject or object pronoun, when you have something like this, separate the two pronouns and see if it sounds right. Her went to the well for water and me went to the well for water do not sound right. So we have to replace these object pronouns with subject pronouns. She and I went to the well for water. If you separate those, it sounds correct. She went to the well for water. I went to the well for water. So whenever you're trying to figure out whether you need a subject or object pronoun, and you're using more than one, separate those pronouns and see if they sound right. So her and me went to the well for water may not sound too bad to some of you, but her went to the well for water and me went to the well for water does not sound right. Number 4, us are the only ones who really know him. Well, us does not sound right. That is an object pronoun. Remember, object pronouns, the action is being done to. Subject pronouns do the action. Well, are is the action, so that means we need a subject pronoun. We are the only ones who really know him. Him is another pronoun, but it's correct. We wouldn't say we are the only ones who really know he. That one's right. That one is not incorrect. It is an object because that's who the action is being done to. Him is being known. Number 5, them are the people we met last year. We know them doesn't sound right. This is a subject of a sentence, so we have to replace them with the subject pronoun they are the people we met last year. Number 6, the young man feared the blind man would be unkind to he. Well, he is not correct because that's a subject pronoun, and the action is being done to this boy. Because the boy is the one who someone could be unkind to. So we need to use an object pronoun, him. The young man feared the blind man would be unkind to him. Number 7, her grandmother gave she a special gift. She is not a subject because she is the one being given something, so it has to be her. Her grandmother gave her a special gift. Now you may be saying, but her grandmother use her. We should be using she. But first of all, listen. She grandmother gave her a special gift. That doesn't sound right. Another reason is because her can also be used as a possessive pronoun, which we will be learning later. So we would use her to show that the girl owns or has the grandmother. So we'll learn about that in a later lesson. Okay, number 8. This is a secret between you and I. Now that may sound correct to you. It almost sounds right to me, but it's not. Because listen, if I separate these two pronouns into by themselves, this is what it sounds like. This is a secret between you. Well, that sounds okay. But this is a secret between I. That does not sound right. That's where the mistake is. Because I am not doing the action in this sentence. So I needs to be me. So make sure if I or me are doing the action, I have to use I. I am doing the action. I cannot use I cannot use I if the action is being done to me. You can't do something to I, you can do something to me. Just like me can't do something to you, but I can do something to you. So watch out for that. Make sure if you're using I, that I is doing an action. If you are using me, make sure that an action is being done to me. So pay attention to that. Number 9, blind people use sounds to help they get around. Well, they does not work because they are the ones being helped, so we have to use an object pronoun. Them. Blind people use sound to help them get around. Okay, number 10. The bugs are a bother to she and grandpa. That's another one where you may think, that sounds okay, but it's not because separate them. The bugs are a bother to she. Does that sound right? It does not. So, she has to become her. The bugs are a bother to her and grandpa. If we take grandpa out, it still sounds correct. The bugs are a bother to her. Number 11, my father handed the hammer to I. Now that's where it sounds wrong. But if I said my father handed the hammer to my brother and I, you might think, oh, that's correct. But it's not, because if you take out my brother and say my father handed the hammer to I, it does not sound right. It needs to be my father handed the hammer to me. Remember, the action is being done to me. You can't say the action is being done to I. Number 12, last one. Don't forget to call we. Well, that's an easy one, because we does not sound correct. And remember, the action is being done to the group, so it needs to be don't forget to call us. Okay, if you have any questions about subject or object pronouns, make sure that you reach out to me later today. Okay, so go back to your notes because now we're going to talk about a third type of pronoun, so which is the last new type that we will talk about today. Okay, so now we're going to talk about a third type of pronoun. And this third type are reflexive pronouns. So reflexive pronouns are pronouns, oops, spelled that wrong. Ooh, I need a new eraser so bad. Pronouns that end with self or selves. So reflexive pronouns end with self or selves, and they are used when the subject, so who or what is doing the sentence, and object, or who or what something is being done to, in a sentence are the same. So reflexive pronouns end with self or selves, and they are used when the person or thing doing the object is the same as the person or thing, doing the action is the same as the person or object that the action is being done to. So reflexive pronouns include singular forms, which are myself, yourself, himself, herself, and itself. So if you're talking about one, if you are replacing one noun, you would use the singular reflexive pronouns myself, yourself, himself, herself, and itself. Now there are also plural forms, which are ourselves, yourselves, and themselves. What I want you to listen to right now is you may have said this before, but their selves is not a word. It would be themselves. The boys are all by themselves, not the boys are all by their selves. Same with their self. Their self is not a reflexive pronoun. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let's see, right here is I am going to write a list of pronouns that you may think are words, but they are not words. Because this is where I hear a lot of mistakes, not just from you guys, just in general, whenever, even just watching TV. I hear them, self. That is not a word because them is plural, so you have to use the plural of self. Selves, themselves. So all by themselves is not a word. Their self and their selves is not a word. You would use themselves or itself or herself or himself. These are not words. Themself, their self, and their selves are not words. Ourself is not a word because our is plural, so you have to use the plural form of self, ourselves. Let's see. I think that's about it. I can't think of any others. If I do, I'll add them to this list. So you can make this list in your notes. These are not words. Themself, their self, and their selves, and ourself. Those are not real words. Those are grammar mistakes. Okay, so now I'm going to write some examples of how to use these sentences. Although, wait, let me look at your guided practice because let's actually do the guided practice together because that's going to help you a lot more than me coming up with a bunch of sentences. And it's going to take a little less time and there's a little less for you to write. So we'll go through, I will show you how in your guided practice, how you can see that the subject and the object are the same. So go ahead and get out your packet should still be out, but go ahead and pull it to you and look at the back of the page that we just did together, and we have guided practice on reflexive pronouns. So go ahead and get that out, keep your notes out, and get ready to do that with me. Okay, so let's read the bullet points at the top. At the bottom, you should be seeing page 104. So let's look at the bullet points at the top, just as a little what we're going to be looking for. It says, use a reflexive pronoun instead of an object pronoun if the subject of the sentence is doing the action to himself or herself. So myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, ourselves, themselves, and yourselves are reflexive pronouns. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill in the blanks in the sentences below with the correct reflexive pronoun. So that means we need to figure out what the subject is, because the subject is going to be doing the action to itself. So that's how we are going to figure out which reflexive pronoun to use. So number 1, be careful and don't hurt yourself. We know whoever is saying this is saying it to you. You are the one who could potentially hurt yourself. So that's why you would use yourself. Number 2, after I go swimming, I dry myself with a towel. I am doing the action to me, so I need to say I dry myself with a towel. I would not say I dry me with a towel. I would say I dry myself with a towel. Number 3, your baby sister can't feed. You would not say can't feed her or can't feed she. You would say your baby sister can't feed herself, because we are saying that she can't feed she or herself. She can't do the action to herself. Number 4, he made blank dizzy by spinning around and around. Well, we know he is the subject, so that means himself is the reflexive pronoun, because he is doing it. He is making himself dizzy. He's doing it to himself. Number 5, let's give blank a break and try again later. Well, let's is a contraction for let us, so we know we are doing the action to us. So let's give ourselves a break and try again later. You would not say ourself because it's plural. So we are giving the break to us. Number 6, the bird washed blank in the puddle. Well, the bird is the subject, and we know we would use it because we don't know if it's a girl or a boy. So the bird washed itself in the puddle. The bird is washing itself, so it's doing the action to itself. Number 7, boys, please get blank ready for dinner. Well, this does say boy, so you would think, I think it's himself. But we have more than one boy, and we don't have a plural form for boys. We would also not use themselves, because we can see here, boys, please get blank ready for dinner. Whoever is talking to the boys. So it would be, boys, please get yourselves ready for dinner. We use the plural form of yourself because we're talking to more than one boy. Number 8, the gardener shut the door and locked blank in the shed. Well, the gardener is the subject. He did it to himself, so that means the gardener shut the door and locked himself in the shed. It could also be herself. The gardener could be a girl. So himself or herself would work in that sentence. Number 9, my grandfather almost fell, but he caught blank. Well, my grandfather is the subject. He is doing the action to himself. He caught himself. So that means we would use himself. We have to use himself because a grandfather is a boy. Number 10, look at blank. You're covered in mud. Well, remember, we know look at blank means somebody is talking to you. So we would say, look at yourself. You're covered in mud. It could also be yourselves, because we really can't tell from this sentence if your is singular or plural. Number 11, I tried to reach the towel blank. Well, I is the subject, so I'm doing the action to myself. I tried to reach the towel myself. Number 12, he looked at blank in the mirror. We have he as the subject, so that means if he's doing it to himself, It means he looked at himself in the mirror. Number 13, we can plant that tree blank. Well, we is the subject, so that means we are doing it to ourselves, so that means we can plant that tree ourselves. Don't forget, if you have a plural reflexive pronoun, it has to end with VES, not F. Number 14, my sister cannot feed blank without some help. Well, my sister is a girl, so that means her, self. If we had more than one sister and it said my sisters, then we would say my sisters cannot feed themselves without some help, because we're not talking to the sisters. Number 15, you can help blank to some cookies. Well, you are helping yourself, so you can help yourself to some cookies. Now that could be yourselves, because there's nothing in that sentence that tells us if the you is singular or plural. Okay, so I hope that made sense. Reach out to me later today if you have some questions on that. If not, go ahead and get started on the independent practice. So just turn the page over. You do have 3 pages of independent practice, only because I could not find another one where they did subject and object on the same page. So you have this, which is a subject pronoun. Make sure to read the directions and follow them closely. Then you have this sheet on object pronouns. So you need to figure out, you're going to be replacing the bold words with the correct object pronoun. And then you have a reflexive pronoun sheet. So you have a blank. You need to figure out which word or words from the word bank, fits. Okay. Go ahead, do that right now. If you have any questions about today's lesson, then please reach out to me today on Skype or FaceTime between 1 and 5.